Yay, wonderful to see you here and be here. And I had this initial moment of just like, wow, it feels actually so good to not have a plan, to not have like a curriculum and an itinerary. I mean, I have a loose sketch in my mind, but just the pleasure of coming together with this simple invitation of orienting to pleasure together in this collective organic intelligence way that will unfold as we are here together. I see familiar faces and unfamiliar faces. I'm Tiffany Sankary, and I'm just amazed that we're in this moment in time together. And I felt moved to do something, and as many of us have felt, moved towards generosity and kindness and compassion right now, which is the silver lining and, you know, sweetness in the bitterness of this time. So this is an expression of that, this desire to connect and share and be together, and also connect to the present moment, because there's so much swirling around about the what's coming and what's happening, that's all around. And then there's actually right here, which, you know, we need reminders to keep coming back to right here. So here we are. And yeah, it's nice to also see your different environments, to see what's around. And so I invite us to right now just take a little time to take your eyes off the screen and just take a look in your environment and see what you see to start orienting us into this present moment. And whatever little sliver of a way is the most easiest for you. So it could be through seeing, or maybe it's through sound. So connecting to your environment right now through your senses, through seeing, hearing, or the tactile sense, your contact with your space. Maybe you linger with something for a while or move on to the next thing. Just notice the organic rhythm of your curiosity right now as you spend a little time just checking out where you are, and also what you're drawn to, what you're curious about. You might notice some movement as you're looking. Maybe you are turning. What parts of yourself move, perhaps? And then we'll do a little chiming in the chat if you feel like it. What did you see or hear or smell or sense? And also any thought how that was, how this is to be doing right now. And I'll read a little bit of what comes in the chat, and then we can continue on from here. You might notice when someone writes something, if it sparks any pleasure or curiosity for you. So light colors, breath, more powerful to orient with others. Yay. And Megan, if you want to say any more about that, like what is it? What is it about that, do you think, or do you feel curious? pleasing colors, plants, expansion, disconnection from material things. Yeah. Light, shadow, kettle boiling in the background, fire flickering, soothing voice. The quilt suddenly looked like a painting. I love that. I looked over, one of the things I saw was, I saw the word paper, and then it was on a big notepad, and it said the paper experts since 1910. And then all of a sudden there was this, just all this about like time, and it's so different now all of a sudden. But that surprise too of, I saw this little sliver of a ribbon, just the freshness of seeing this purple color in like a brand new way. Let's see, musical instruments and light switch smudges, curious when last cleaned. Yeah. Shadows in the corner of the room. And already I'm seeing this lovely theme of light and shadow. So I'm kind of curious too, what will be our kind of collective themes or imagery, or just what arises. And you might notice other themes too. If you notice them, please share them. Shea and cocoa butter smell from my hand lotion. A little bird just landed on my windowsill. Nice. I feel like, let's do another round. There's more in the chat, but I'm feeling my own impulse to take my eyes off the screen. So feel free to do the same. And while we're here together, you know, if you feel like getting on the floor or standing or doing something different, or you need to go pee, or you need a cup of tea, or you need to move, just really invite you. This is time for us to just really into what is feeling good and follow that. If we have threads that feel good, and if we don't, then we're just like trying to get oriented to what does feel even a little bit better than. It's like, if there's not good, then maybe what's neutral. Like, I'm looking right now at this painting, a drawing / painting thing. There's just like one little part of it that's this like white scribble. And there's something about that I have not seen. I don't think I've ever seen it. And there's something sort of soothing just to see that right now. I'm also having the awareness that many of you are new to me and what I do, and you might be like, what are we even doing here? So maybe I'll say a little bit about that, just to also orient you to this orientation practice. And then we'll go on with what goes on in the chat over here, which is super lovely. So, So I'm also just like wanting to check in, like, how's it going? So there's multiple impulses happening at the same time for me. So if you feel like sharing, yeah, how's this going so far, or what are your questions? And then I'll share a little bit. So organic intelligence is a practice, philosophy, you know, probably that whole idea of organic intelligence and our own innate organic intelligence has just been there forever and ever. And this articulation in this particular form recently is Steve Hoskinson, who's the founder of an organization called Organic Intelligence, a practice called Organic Intelligence. And he has a background as a psychotherapist and somatic experiencing trainer for 20 years and studying complex systems theory and Aikido and family systems. And so it's like a systems perspective. And it's super beautiful practice that I entered into as an artist and a Feldenkrais practitioner in search of how to connect more emotionally or on the like emotional nervous system stress anxiety plane with my clients. Feldenkrais is a beautiful practice for nervous system regulation, among other things, but there were questions and missing holes in my learning that I searched around the towns for some answers and some practices, and the different threads of things I explored led me to organic intelligence. And it's so in alignment with Feldenkrais in that it's non-pathologizing. It's about following what's easy, what's good, what's pleasurable, and that we can expand our capacity through pleasure and enjoyment rather than through fixing or through like digging into our problems and like hammering away at them. And it's just filled out for me a lot of the missing pieces, and a lot of the way that I like to describe it is it feels like it was a map, or a missing piece, the glue that just helped stitch the Feldenkrais authentic movement creative process together into something that makes sense, and gave me a way to actually talk with my clients. Like sometimes somebody would come in with something more emotional happening, and instead of just going right to like, let's just, start like moving you, that I could relate as a human and connect, and also find out what the ways that our systems are naturally self-organizing support that process. So Feldenkrais also is interested in removing what's in the way of our natural self-organization, the way that we are when we're kids, the buoyancy and the flexibility and the resilience of many children that were born in the world with this freedom, so that Feldenkrais helps, remove the obstacles to that and helps us move more, supports this organic learning to move more towards organically being in the world. And organic intelligence is also similar, and it just has a different medium. And the medium is often in an individual one-on-one way. It's a free association conversation where there's an emphasis on orientation and I'm wondering how much to get into this, but so the sort of basic framework in organic intelligence is this 5-pronged different channels of perception, a way of orienting to our variety of perceiving. So it's called ISOMA. So it's stands for image, sensation, orientation, meaning or cognitive process, also could be like what's meaningful, and affect or feeling. So Feldenkrais would say all these are happening all at once, or moving, sensing, feeling, thinking, which is true. It's all happening at once. And in Feldenkrais, we do a lot of differentiation. So differentiation in movement, and in organic intelligence, there's this beautiful process of differentiating our channels of perception so that we can actually move from sensing internally to sensing into the environment. And I'm feeling an impulse for us to do that again, because I just went on a long telling you about stuff. So it gives you like a little bit of sprinkling of stuff, but basically there's an emphasis in organic intelligence that if you have these other 4 channels, the internal images, internal sensations, internal feelings, internal thoughts, and you have all those going on, but you don't have orientation to the environment, then you're just like swirling around your internal environment, and it actually can't land in the real world. So this emphasis on connecting to the environment, simple but powerful, again and again and again and again, supports your feelings to be oriented, your senses to be oriented, your thoughts to be oriented, your images to be oriented, and that creates more coherence. So hopefully that lands somewhere. And if it totally goes over your head too, that's what it did for me when I first heard about it. And it took like a right moment for me to be like, oh, yeah. So take your eyes off the screen and connect to your environment again for a moment, if you'd like. Okay. How's that going? How are you doing? What are you noticing? I'll get back to reading the chat in a moment. And I can feel my own. I'm very excited to have you all here and sharing in words, which is this thing. So I was like helping us get oriented to what orientation is. And with this attempt to bring my thinking and my feeling and to have my words be oriented to you so that they would land. And of course, this is an ongoing process, and I'm loving the moving and the baby. So sweet. So sweet. Glad you both could join us. Okay, so textures and brightness, sensation of lotion, sun revealing layers in translucent stone, drawn to the outdoors, the light and rain and birds. Me too. That's what I was looking at. Baby legs moving. Yay. Light through the blinds. Clutter. Jetliners taking off from the nearby airport. Stillness. Inner upward energy. Jade plant growing towards the sun. Grateful for a wet park out my window. We have a lot of rain right now, wherever we are. Your question, there's something more powerful about doing things collectively. I can get into it more deeply oftentimes and feel it more potently. Bare tree branches glistening in morning sun. Yeah. So this is also our social engagement potential. And so there's this wild thing right now where we're socially isolating, and yet there's this highlighting of how important connection is and how much we need that. And so that the opportunity of these beautiful virtual spaces is that we can experience that potency of connection together in shared practices. And I'm also just out of the corner of my eye, just loving seeing like the movement. You know, there's like someone eating breakfast and the baby's moving and adjusting, and that we're all simultaneously finding our ways. And if that gives you permission to, if you feel like moving, then do. There's more comments than I can keep up with. Okay, I'm just gonna scroll. The baby, the light, the shadows. Okay, question. What would you say is the main difference with somatic experiencing and body-mind centering? So my experience is more with Feldenkrais and organic intelligence. So I can't exactly say so clearly about, I know that there's definitely a lot of crossover with body mind centering in terms of developmental stuff and a lot of things. I've heard great things. I just don't have that experience. And with somatic experiencing, the people that I did some work with, their teachers were Steve Hoskinson. So I know the thread of somatic experiencing that leads to organic intelligence. And my understanding is that, and there may be SE people here who could chime in, but Steve has a real emphasis on orientation and really one of the things I could say from my own experience is I worked with a client recently who's done a lot of SE and really has benefited so much in terms of seeing the roots of what was going on in his system and where it all came from and understanding his stories and what's going on in his body. And what he said from our sessions was that it felt like more organic. There's not like a technique of like, now we're going to do this or that, but more, I'm like, if he's really in his thinking channel, I'm not going to bring him to sensation unless there's an opening for it. So I'm following the channels of perception that somebody is in. And then when there's an opening, I might bring in another one to help harvest the goodness of what's arising and find those naturally supportive, self-organizing impulses that are coming. But it's not, so that's what I would say, but that's only from my experience. I want to read, but I also just want to like be here with you guys. So I'm going to pause again. I'm wondering too, as we're moving in this kind of towards this half hour in terms of this arc, beginning with orientation, now if we can also begin to harvest a little bit of the pleasure. I'm seeing this lovely hand resting enjoyment. So I'm wondering if wherever you are, if there might be any slivers or bursts of pleasure that are here, and whether you might take a moment to experience the pleasure of seeing a color or the pleasure of and naturally you see someone else doing something and you're like, oh, that looks good. Or your hand is just naturally coming to your face, or you feel like you want to lean back on that chair and raise your arm to the ceiling, that you enjoy that also. So shifting. So orientation, like in its essence, is more neutral in terms of it's not necessarily about adding a layer of anything on it. It just is like experience. But then we can enhance that positive experience through enjoyment. So yeah, what are you enjoying? Take a moment for enjoyment. And if there's not enjoyment, if you're in a place and your experience is not enjoyment, then just sit with that question for a little bit. Like, what might be a little bit more enjoyable? Like maybe it's to turn this off and go for a walk. Or maybe it's to put your headphones on and put this on your phone and go for a walk. Or maybe it's to, close your eyes or open your eyes or go to the window. Yeah, that's nice. I saw somebody go off the call, and that's great. You know, like we need that. We need to listen to that. Those impulses of like, yes, no. So what's a yes right now for you? And can you just take a little time to enjoy that a little bit more? And if you notice like a spontaneous bigger breath coming, that usually means it's a good sign that, you know, there's a shift in your system. So you can enjoy those breaths as they come, the yawns. So you can continue this and I'll see what else we have here. I'm behind. There's 48, 49 that that I have messages in here that I haven't seen. So I'm just going to do a kind of free association sprinkling of things I see. And if I miss something that you wrote that you feel like you want to be seen and heard, you can put it in again. Peacefulness. Some dishes from the kitchen reminding me that a nourishing meal was cooked with care. Reframed how I respond and notice what I see after hearing about orienting rather than diagnosing, fixing. Nice. Blue sky, white clouds, comforting, hugging cool pillow, the grain of the wood. Lines and patterns. A mail carrier walking around their truck through the gentle rain and soft light. Sunlight patterns. Looking at each other's environments. Streaks on the window. Okay. I haven't heard of orienting as an activity that's recognized, but an Alexander technique I'm always asked to sense the space above my head or the like, which is orienting. Yes, that's true. And in Feldenkrais, there is orientation. So Feldenkrais would say any action has orientation, manipulation, and timing. So then the manipulation is like coordination of yourself through space. So there's always like what is up, what is down, what is right, what is left. So when you're doing Feldenkrais, you're constantly orienting to directions. And the added, and also in relation to your environment, and the thing that this practice has done for me is really emphasize and differentiate, bringing the attention really out into the environment as a differentiation from internal experience. And it can be that they're also, of course, connected in a loop, but to really like the Feldenkrais definitely has orientation in it, and the emphasis is on more, I would say, on sensory experience, as it's also related to being oriented. But this just kind of like takes it a little further out into the environment, like for real, like just the concreteness of the environment. And Steve Hoskinson talks about orientation as a practice that leads to orientation as a state. So the state of being oriented, which is the opposite of disorientation, to a trait of being just oriented in life, where you're oriented in this moment and you're oriented in terms of your life path, in terms of seeing where you're going in a bigger sense. And there was a question, what does ISOMA stand for? Yes, image sensation, orientation, meaning, and affect. The pleasure of being here with everyone. Yeah. I saw this. I'm going to take that one. I'm loving also this like rolling on the ball, and this like looks really nice. Looks super sweet. Yeah. And the rubbing the eyes is looking nice to me too. What if you start with pleasure and suddenly there's a pain and it stops? Yeah, so there is this natural oscillation. So our systems, there's this natural activation, deactivation, the rising and setting of the sun, inhale, exhale, up, down. There is a natural oscillation. So one practice, maybe we can even do now, is Steve Hoskinson calls a half sandwich. So, and the sandwich is, the bread is orientation, and in the middle is the pleasure. So we could play with it. So unless you're on your doing your thing, just do your thing. I'm really enjoying this thing happening here. Okay, so play with, if you'd like, a little looking around. And I say look around because the eyes have so much information that is feedback to our systems. But if you're more like interested in hearing or the tactile sense, then you can go with that. I'm saying seeing. So play with looking around, finding something that your eyes, like you're letting your eyes go where they want to go on a little tour with no, just an organic exploration. And then when you find something that you feel like pausing, I am pausing, and there's this part of a lamp that's this beautiful shape of negative space. And I'm staying there for a moment and feeling the pleasure of that, and then go back to orientation. So taking my eyes away from that. So it's like not staying too long in any one pleasurable moment so that it will then turn to discomfort or turn into too much intensity. So the orientation can actually help reduce the intensity, can help neutralize the intensity a little bit. Yeah, how is that? Nice. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. It's got 59, I'm super behind. Okay, what if I just go to the end and then I'll scroll back up later? Okay. Very clear guide to orienting. Thank you. Oh, good. Good. Glad to hear. Is orienting noticing, sensing? Okay, so Steve Hoskinson calls orientation connecting to the environment through the senses. So there is a sensory component, and it's the meeting of the environment with the senses. So then this gets like, well, then how is sensation in terms of isoma different? And you could say the sensation channel is more like, of course they meet, they overlap, but that there could be also internal sensations that are not necessarily about connecting to the ground or my hand on the wall, and that there can be both of those at the same time. So, and you might notice you're someone who is, you know, has a lot of sensation, has a lot of imagery, has a lot of thoughts, but orientation is not so much, or maybe doesn't have images, but has thoughts and feelings, and those are really coupled together. And so this idea of differentiating these sometimes is that then they can come back and be more integrated. Okay, why is it important from organic intelligence point of view? Resourcing, question mark. Okay, so why is orientation important? Is that the question? So I mentioned it before too, that if we just have our internal experiences and they're not connected to the environment, it's like my internal feeling, in order for it to be more coherent and related to this moment, I need to have some orientation to the environment. And that orientation to the environment can help my feeling not get also so overwhelming and so intense, like people were saying about fear. It's like when the fear is so overwhelming. I mean, and sometimes, so I use this with sometimes I'm a mom of 2 small children, and my kids are like having a moment in the kitchen and everybody's hungry and tired. If I, for a moment, remember to just like let my eyes find one thing, the red on the stained glass, something in me calms down, and there's a bigger picture of what's going on than just my internal experience. And so it's not like, and it's in terms of the idea of resourcing, I think organic intelligence has a little bit of a different thing about that than somatic experiencing. As far as I understand, I don't know too much about somatic experiencing, but that it's this organic process. It's not like I'm remembering a resource that I have, but it's like Steve calls it postcards from home, that our systems are constantly giving us a little song comes in your head, and you could be like, why is that song in my head? Or you could be like, oh, that's a little gift from my system to remember this song and the meaning that it gives to me and the feeling that it gives to me, or seeing a flower, that it brings this joy. It's like reminding us of this present moment. And also in terms of the vagus nerve and our perception, our neuroception, this perception of safety. When we have this right now, this fear of the danger that is happening, if we can bring in some dose of the present moment, of allowing our heads and eyes to turn and see and map the environment and have the environment give us this feedback that in this particular moment, I am in this cozy room and I am with you guys exploring this kind of thing, and we're curious together, and we're like having a moment of curiosity. And there's a feedback that comes, and my eyes in particular have fibers that are connecting to my brain, and that when those fibers are used for seeing, then it's giving my system the feedback of what it is that I'm seeing, and that actually shifts our state from being in a state of disorientation. Like if you could imagine, like, you know, if I'm totally like in a freeze place and my eyes are glazed over, that is, I'm in an internal place or I have gone somewhere. So by engaging, like the fiber, like Steve talks about that those fibers of our eyes are hijacked by the dorsal vagal, by the freeze system. So how to bring them back, how to bring ourselves back. This practice of orientation is so powerful, simple and powerful. The first time I heard of it, I was like, look your eyes around. I was like, what? Who cares? I don't care. That is not doing anything. Years went by. And then it was like, okay, actually, you know, maybe looking around so far out is not doing it for me, but maybe if I look like at something that's really close and I enjoy the little blue flower on the plate for a moment, can give me a little bit of a downshift in my gear. Who's Steve Hoskinson? Yes. So he is the guy who created or founded Organic Intelligence, what is called Organic. You could look him up, organicintelligence.org. He has a podcast called The End of Trauma. Oh, good. Thank you for putting the link in there. And I'm a mentor in one of his organic intelligence, human empowerment, and resiliency trainings, which I was supposed to be there next month in San Diego, but we're going to be online right now. I've been outside in sunshine most of the day and noticing my eyes want to rest while I enjoy listening and my body is exploring different materials and shifts in environment. Yes. So following that impulse too, if you feel like your eyes want to rest and to close your eyes, we need that. We need to, that's part of this natural oscillation. We need that. Yes. Vagus nerve is linked with ocular muscles, so eye movement and using eyes to help orient makes sense. Thanks for the red glass tip. I have some kids too and sometimes lose my peace. We'll try orienting. Yes, yes. And sometimes it can help to also add, like, not just that you see the red glass, but even adding the words, I see the red glass. So then that brings your thought and your orientation. So then you have two of your channels of perception in coherence for that moment. And that's like a distinct widening the view from what's happening in the chaotic moment. Okay, someone's liking how I described in the kitchen. Orientation provides a neutral container where other channels can roll through much more easily without overwhelming essential presence. Orientation can be in any of the senses, yes. Sometimes when my eyes are tired, I orient through my ears and through textures and temperatures on my skin. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, for sure. Thank you for bringing that in. And thank you. I have not really understood how orienting is calming before. Yay. Clear guide to orienting. Okay, good. So I know that there's more in there. Okay, I'm going to read this one. I really like that orienting is neutral. That's how I felt. I'm now luxuriating and stretching in front of my pelvis psoas area through the spine. Yum. Earlier, I felt acidic tension in the front of my tongue and realized how it's not so easy to sensate for beings with pain. Yes, so this can be beautiful. The bringing the attention out into orientation can be a shift from sensing what's painful inside in time in your internal experience. Okay, enjoyment of just hanging out, listening, having a coffee in an easeful kind of way. Nice. I'm just taking a moment to see who we are here. I'm enjoying this like tapping of someone's like tapping their pen, solo pen, and there's this little movement. That looks good. Shall we do another round of just looking to see if there's more here? Okay, somebody was asking about the difference between focusing on sensation and orientation through the senses. I think it's like, well, we could do it now. So let's just play with having a clear orientation through sensation, through body sensation, through like the kinesthetic sense. So shifting from seeing or hearing into feeling your feet on the ground or feeling where you feel the environment through your sensation, just for a moment. See if we can play with that. And if you're into one of the other things, then just do your thing. And I notice immediately when I bring my attention to the chair and to the ground, like I just wanted to start moving. But you can just notice for yourself. What is that like to bring your attention to the environment, or also like my hand on the wall, the environment? So right now I feel connected to my sensation and connected to the environment. And then there's a pleasurable feeling. So I'm going to just let my hand go off the wall and take a moment to just enjoy the pleasure of what that is, what that was. Actually, I feel my hand like a little bit of tingly, kind of like soft feeling. In this hand, I also feel a soft feeling. And I'm kind of shifting my attention more inward to harvest the pleasure. My breath just went into my belly. There was a gurgle. I feel my heart beating. So I would say that then I can go back out into sensing the environment again. My pelvis, my butt on the chair, my feet on the ground, my toes contacting the ground. So you could have like a sandwich like that, where you're like sensation and connection to the environment. So orientation to the environment through the kinesthetic sense, then more of an internal sensation of pleasure or kind of enjoying harvesting that, and then back to sensing the environment. So does that help clarify a little bit that differentiation? Your differentiation between organic intelligence and Feldenkrais has got me really curious. I'm a kind of seasoned Feldenkrais practitioner, but this is the first time I'm exploring organic intelligence. Yeah, it's a very cool intersection. There's like so much overlap. It's almost uncanny in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of beautiful ways that they can inform each other and difference between them. I've heard of interoception, inward, proprioception, self in space, and exteroception. Can you say what exteroception is? Seems relevant. Yes. Outward. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like that. And I think it's like, you know, ultimately we can have all these simultaneously. Like I can feel my feet on the ground, my pelvis in the chair, my hands doing this, my heart, my movement, my belly. I can perceive all of you, sense of the room. I can have all of those at the same time. And that is beautiful. And that's like the direction we're headed, is this more integrated, bringing it all in. Self in relation to the environment, our bodily selves, our collective. So our individual body, our collective body, our environmental body, you know, that we could have all these at the same time. And it makes sense too that maybe you can't 100% all the time have all those layers of awareness going on all the time. So go through the easy door. That's like a Feldenkrais thing. It's like, if you like to do this, don't correct yourself to fix yourself to go the other way. Go with what's easy first. So if the sound is easy for you, sound. If the sensing inside is easy for you, then go with the inside. And then build out from there. And I think just having the awareness that there is a possible ability to differentiate, and the benefit of also in these times bringing our attention out into the environment when our internal state is so lit up by this situation, to have the feedback from the flowers and the feedback from the human connection and the feedback from the little blue flower on the plate for a moment, that all that enters into this loop that informs your thoughts and your sensations and your feelings. And it lights up the constellation of either going in a kind of let's move in a positive direction versus like the downward spiral that can happen when you just go into the empty toilet paper shelves or whatever. Okay. Great. I'm caught up, at least with the bottom. I missed some of the middle, but I know that we're getting close to our time, and I'm just curious how you're doing right now, how this time has been for you, what's present right now, what feels pleasurable, or what are you oriented to. And so what I love too about this idea of orientation, not only that it's like a practice of connecting to the environment through the senses, but it's this beautiful metaphor of how are we oriented in our lives? How are we oriented in our relationships? How are we oriented in our creative practices? How are we oriented in our work? And kind of like it can serve that meta purpose too. And the more what's so cool is the more that we're oriented in this moment, then the more we can be oriented on those other levels too. A beautiful experience. Yay. And here is a beautiful thing about like harvesting pleasure. So what is beautiful? How is it beautiful? Just curious. And that can sometimes, it's like when you like something or when you find something beautiful, then can you also notice like which channel of your experience are you experiencing that in, and can you add another one? Like, is there a pleasurable sensation, or is there an image that kind of constellates that beautiful experience for you? Feeling fed and inspired. Nice. This has really helped me find another way to be more present. Yay. Oriented to make breakfast right now. Nice. And feeling so, so grateful to have this opportunity to connect with everyone and orient to the here and now. I played down and stared a long time, felt very interesting, called back some memories, or I laid down. Nice. So excited to learn more, excited to bring orienting to my interactions at meetings and one-on-one relationships. Yeah, it's a powerful tool that leads to a powerful, potent state that then can become a way of life. And sweet to hang out with in pleasure with folks right now, regulating and resourcing for my nervous system right now. Yeah. And now again, I had a moment of like, so there I was, like in a thought. I was there reading the chat. Yes, I was there. And then something brought me back to this moment, to seeing all of you, to orienting to the screen and seeing this beautiful movement, someone on the ground holding their foot, rolling, luxuriating. And my hand went here and I felt my hand. And then I saw someone else. It's like this beautiful kind of mudra, you know, of like hands somewhere here. I can't do it exactly, but just enjoying the variety of us, how we're being together, and also all of you who are not having your videos on, just knowing that you're there and feeling grateful. And yes, someone's saying enjoy the spontaneity of this gathering. Yeah, me too. And that's like one of the things too that has been present for me in this wild time is how can I actually, in my limited time, so some people have a lot more time right now on their hands. And as a mother of two small children, I have less time on my hands. So, and that's interesting how I said on my hands, like, and I caught that. So that's like the way that our systems do these little things, these little unconscious phrasings that can also be kind of gifts, like on my hands. I don't know what that means, but like that stood out to me and I'm kind of curious about that. But so this is showing me that in this time, so basically my husband and I were still working it out, but basically I have 6 hours a day to myself and the rest of the time I'm with my kids or sleeping. And in that 6 hours is my self-care time, my work time. My business is online, so that was good for me because I don't have to do a big learning curve right now shift. But if you know me, I have like way more ideas than I can keep up with, like beyond. So now I'm just having to be like, okay, Tiffany, you have to choose. And so what is helping me orient to what even to do right now is actually like what is most pleasurable. Like this right here is pleasurable. This is not, and realizing that so many of the things that I feel moved to do, they don't have to directly translate into making an income. That is not, I know it's different for everyone. And I know that I have the privilege to like follow my muse and it all works out. And I hope that that still works. But I feel like the most important thing that I can do right now for myself and for others is to follow what's pleasurable, what's meaningful, what feels life-giving and supportive to me and to others. And the more that that can happen simultaneously, the better. And I think that that's one of the gifts of these times is that people are like, how can I help? How can we mutually support each other? That is a growing, that's like one of the silver linings. And I said that in the beginning, and that's this beautiful arc too and theme of, I think this time is that we're we're just like, oh yeah, we are all connected. It is not a joke anymore. Not a joke. It is not abstract. It's very real now. It's very real. And so the more that we can actually experience the pleasure of that connection, the more that will grow. And so I have this Move, Create, Practice Facebook group where I've like decided to consolidate my like Facebook time as much as possible into that space where we can like have little practices, because these moments of connecting to this moment is what's going to get us through this moment. And we have to be here in order to get wherever we're going. So yes, I love that you're following what's pleasurable and supporting us. Life-giving and supporting, so glad. And thank you for helping and support to the somatic community. Yes, yay. And I felt moved, like I didn't have any time. I went from being in our almost last segment of our Boston Feldenkrais training that's been like a 4-year thing I've been assisting in every day for the whole entire training, and they're about to graduate, and this thing happened, and we went through a lot of the segment, like 75% of the people went on Zoom, and then we ended a few days early because we were like, oh yeah, we need to end this. So I went straight from that into my kids don't have school. So my time was like this, but what I felt moved to do in that time was like, there's all these Feldenkrais practitioners who are teaching online now because that's where everybody's classes are going. So I made this international Feldenkrais online directory in multiple languages. There's like 65 plus classes and I think 9 languages now. So there's classes happening all over the world, and just that feeling of mutual support and like, I've built this mailing list, let me use it to like help everybody with their classes. Hopefully you will go to people's classes and in different languages. And I can feel in myself this like, even just talking about, and I didn't have this time and blah, blah, blah. I can feel my system going like, so now, I have to come back to the now. And yeah, somebody's saying, thank you very much for making me come back to myself in the present moment. Love the reiteration of this space weekly via Move, Create, Practice with Mark. Yes. Yeah. So harvesting pleasure. Definitely be using orientation, harvesting pleasure. And also I have this library called Movement and Creativity Library. Some of you are members, some of you are new. And I have 10 days of free access to this library that has over 200 Feldenkrais classes and some guided orientation practices from me, and also a bunch of talks from Steve Hoskinson and some orientation practices from him, the founder of Organic Intelligence. There's over 20 different teachers. It's this really sweet spot that I've been cultivating over the last few years. And so there's 10 days of free access starting on Sunday. And also Deborah Bose, who's a Feldenkrais trainer, wonderful, amazing teacher, is going to teach well-being through pelvic floor awareness on Sunday. That's free. And then I'm going to teach 3 classes next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that are called This Moment is Your Perfect Teacher, the Feldenkrais Method as a tool for well-being. I think that's what I called it. So that'll be like an introduction to Feldenkrais. And my thought is I'm going to weave in some of the organic intelligence stuff into it. It'll be Feldenkrais classes, but with this emphasis on really like listening to yourself and doing what is supportive to your well-being at this time and in movement with awareness. Yeah, so you're welcome to come to that. Thank you all. I'm going to just stay on for a second and put those links in here, and I'll email them out too if you want to just sign off too. But before I put the links in, I thought it could be sweet to connect to a word. If you want to put a word in the chat as a kind of haiku, collecting your experience into a word right now, and we can share. Thank you for reorienting me to this moment and weaving us together. I'm also feeling pleasure is an important guide right now. I love that, pleasure as a guide. That's really nice. And that's to me where this idea of collective organic intelligence, which when I first learned about organic intelligence, I was like, it's one-on-one in a group, one-on-one. And I was like, how do you do this in a group? This is possible in a group. What happens if we come together? And so I have curiosities about how that might continue. And I definitely would like to do something like this again, and am enjoying being here with you, and would love to also create a space sometime where I could hear from more of you too, and have it be a more of a shared kind of circular process, not just a one way, although I have been appreciating the chats. And now we have a lot of sweet words coming in. Baby Felix has had a wonderful sleep. Nice. I noticed that at a certain point he was no longer in the image. I was like, he must have gone somewhere good. Connection, moment, engagement, inspiration, rooting, ease, space, joy, rebirth, letting go through the easy door. Yes, let's do it again. Yay. Yeah. And so also, yeah, I have thoughts. I'll tell you my thoughts. So I have this library, this Movement and Creativity library, and it will be free for 10 days starting Sunday. And then it has a membership option. It has like a monthly and a yearly membership option, $30 a month, $240 a year. But I've thought, like, during this crazy time, I also have like partial scholarship options available for people who can't afford it. So that I want to make it accessible to people. So there's that. And I've thought maybe as a part of Movement and Creativity Library is I have these weekly vision meetings we do every Monday morning that help sort of prioritize and organize your to-dos based on David Allen's Getting Things Done. And we do some orientation in the beginning. And then once a month, there's a Move, Create, Practice where I guide some kind of embodied or creative practice in the beginning. We have open time for practice, and then we share at the end. But I thought it could be fun to maybe add some things like this to, I don't know, or do I just keep doing it for free? I have no idea. I'm just happy to figure out what works for people, and we'll go from there. But if you have ideas, email me or whatever, be in touch. And yeah, we'll go from here, and hope to see you in some of the Feldenkrais classes. And till next time.